it took us a little longer to get started. Thank you to Natasha and those others for getting this started in the room. Can I just kind of ask like about how many people we have there in person?
Hey, Reagan.
Hi.
Reagan.
Yes.
Since you can't see what we can see, could you make your window a little bigger? Because it's a little hard to read from like halfway back in the room.
I have no idea.
Okay.
Let
So
me
if you
see.
can't, I think we probably
Because
can.
like I have my it's my full-on browser.
Yep, no, that's
Okay.
cool. I think we can do it.
And Reagan, this is Jennifer. I'm
Hi.
just going to turn, hi. So I have the mic. I'm going to be roaming. I just turned the camera. Thank you, Jen. The Jens are, Jen is making Jen think. So you should be able to see the room. So I might interject once in a while if someone wants to speak. I hope that's okay.
Yes. Yes, please do. Because again, like just like Vivian was saying, I can see the room, but you are all very tiny. So if somebody raises their hand, I'm probably not going to be able to see that. So, but we'll get this to work. Again, thank you everybody who is here, both in person and with Zoom. This is a working meeting for Metadata Management SIG. And we are going to start the process of looking at maybe a redesign or changing things within inventory to make it work better for those of us who are using it. Right now, inventory is an instance-centric UI design, and there are a number of challenges in browsing and navigation, especially if you have a bunch of holdings and or items. And also the interface is very, very clicky. And while there are some shortcuts, there's still a lot that needs to be done. And so we are kind of looking at some questions about the search concept, result list redesign, and what to do with the detailed view or third pane. So there's some different ways things could be done. And Felix, because I don't use really anything other than inventory, and you are mentioning here that there's some other apps that have other ways to search. Do you want to discuss these a little bit? I can click on them and bring them up, maybe.
Hey everyone. Sure. So when we are speaking about inventory, we have those three record types right now. We have the instance, holding, and item. I guess everyone knows that. And
sorry, real quick, what are the Bugfest passwords?
Folio.
Thank you.
And yeah, all in lower caps. Yeah. And in other apps, we have different record types as well. So for instance, people who work with orders, so in acquisitions, know that you can create an order, and that is basically just a wrapper. So you can specify who's the vendor, where I'm ordering from. Is it a one-time order for books, or is it an ongoing order for
Felix?
Yeah.
We can't see the entire screen.
It's okay. I'll work on it.
You'll
work
okay.
on it. That's why I left,
Thanks.
and that's why I'm back up here.
Okay, so I will tell, maybe people can then imagine. So yeah, we have this concept of an order or purchase order, PO, and we have a concept of a purchase order line. And the purchase order line describes what you actually order. So the title of the book, the contributors, the price of the book, the budget where the price should be, calculated against the quantity, how many copies you order, and stuff like that. So you can think of it like a bit like a holdings that is connected to an instance. So an order line or PUL can only live if it is attached to a purchase order. The same as a holding can only live or exist if it is connected to an instance. So you can't have an order line without an order, and you can't have a holdings without an instance. So the concept is the same, and that only also applies to things like agreement lines, where you have the agreement that is the parent record, and then you have an agreement line describing an e-resource like a package or a title from within a package that is linked to the agreement via the agreement line. And the same is true for licenses. That is my third and last example, where you can have a license record, and the license record can have amendments. So if you have like a contract with your provider for, I don't know, Springer ebooks, and then over time something changes, but it's not a real new contract, then you can create an amendment saying, okay, this amendment is active from, I don't know, 2026, and some terms and conditions have changed from A to B. And same as with our inventory records, an amendment can only be or can only exist if you have a license record that is the parent record then. And so when you, I don't know, can you click on one of those amendment records?
Oh.
So what you here see now is not the license, but that is actually the amendment record. So if you now imagine you would be in inventory and you perform a holding search, and then you click, what you get is in the result list. So the second pane, you get an instance record list. So you have the instance title, contributor state, stuff like that. And when you open it, you get the detailed view of the instance as well in the third pane. But what you get in orders, when you search for order lines, or in agreements, searching for agreement lines, or in licenses, searching for amendments, what you see here in the third pane is is actually the amendment and not the license. When we try to imagine how that would look like in inventory, you get a list of holdings when you perform a holding search, and you get a detailed view of the holdings record when you click on one of the entries in the one of the items in the list. So that could be a starting point for discussion. Would that be something people would see is beneficial for inventory as well? And if yes, how could that look like? And if not, why not? And yeah, how we should address it then?
Well, I'm just going to pop in. That's a great question, Felix. One of the things that I see, I don't, maybe you and Reagan can answer this, or anyone in the room. I'm wondering if there are challenges that are unique to folio inventory. So, and normally if you work in inventory, sometimes you work in other apps, but also source record storage that maybe are different or perhaps similar to how search is done in like agreements or licenses. And I don't know, did you want to answer that first, Felix or Reagan, or maybe have people in the audience or online answer that?
I pretty much only work in like inventory and then data import, so I don't feel like I could answer that, Felix.
You know, one thing that comes to my mind is that for holdings, you could also have a mark holdings record. So that would be a source record that is, of course, different to the other apps where you only have the native folio record stored in, I don't know, mod order storage, for instance. But here we have then we could have a native holdings record stored in SRS, and we could have the created on the fly created folio holdings record.
For those who don't know me, I'm Vivian Gould. I'm with Mobius. The app interaction or cross app SIG is currently working on a long-term project involving the attempt to standardize search behavior across all the various folio apps. While I can't give you any of the particulars, because I primarily work in inventory myself, my understanding is that the various search interfaces do have inconsistencies from app to app. Currently, we are in the process of actually defining how searching works for every field in every app, so we can describe what exists now, so that the next step after that will be trying to get some consistency in the way that fields are searched for, et cetera, et cetera. I would say one thing about inventory that I have found frustrating is that there's really no way to search for mark. So you can see a mark field if you've got a mark backed record. You can see the mark record, but you can't search for mark.
Hi, this is Kristen Martin from University of Chicago. Some things that just to think about, since you're using the POL search as an example, from the acquisition SIG side, people do not like that the PO and the POL are such separate and distinct entities. So if you bring up a POL, you don't know who the vendor is. And that's a really big gap in working with orders, is not to know who your vendor is. And for, organizations particularly that use a single line purchase order, it's really not a real meaningful distinction. For institutions that have multi-line purchase orders, I can certainly see where having the POL separated is helpful, but I will say there's been many conversations with frustration at that level. So before you go to separating things too much, just think about if you're doing a search for a holdings or for an item, is there information that you really actually need at that instance level that's not going to be immediately available to you? I don't know the answer to that. That's just something that, I think is a disadvantage of how in acquisitions the PO and the POL are separated.
Yeah, no, that totally makes sense. And it's like if we did make a change to where I think we do kind of already do this, like that when you're in the item record, you can see at least like the title and contributor and maybe a little bit of the publication information. So there is some of that pulled over. But then, yeah, there might be a question of how much of that gets pulled over for reviewing on like the items or holdings. So thank you though for bringing that up, because I do think some of us are like, oh, this other thing is cool, but then if we don't use it, we don't know the pain points that others have. Are there other people either in the room or online who would like to share something?
So I was just gonna say that one thing I do like about searching in the orders app. Oh, is it not on? Oh, yeah, I turned it off, sorry.
I just love that button up.
We're getting the mic turned back on.
Okay.
Sorry. So one thing I do like about searching in the orders app is that if I put in a POL number or a purchase order number, I get the freaking thing. And that does not happen in inventory. I put in a holding HRID and I get an instance and it's got 15 holdings, and good luck guessing which one it is. We solved that for the barcode searching, sort of, assuming that you have few enough barcodes that they're all on the first page. So I feel a little discouraged at the idea of fixing the search for all the fields. I would so much prefer to see an MVP where we can at least bring things up by identifier.
Yeah, to piggyback on that, I mean, try finding an item record when you've got an item HRID, but there's 1,000 items attached to a holdings record.
Yeah. Now,
Sorry,
I will
Reagan,
say, that barcodes and item record IDs should bring you to the exact one now.
Barcodes, I can confirm. Item HRIDs, I cannot confirm at this time.
I can confirm the HRID.
Okay.
And just to piggyback, this is Jennifer, on what Jen and Vivian are saying. I do a lot of work with items and holdings, and the search results being instances is just, it's not helpful at all, honestly. And you get everything connected to that instance. I'm looking for a specific holdings and typically specific items. I also need to see, because I work in orders as well as receiving and requests, I need to see that information and what's connected to the item. And I find that, I think my risks of just, I end up clicking into oblivion, and it's very hard. I think if you're working at that level.
Yeah, and so I think we're all, I mean, I think there's very general agreement, and even why we're having this meeting is we want to make a change. And we can kind of go down to this next point on the result list design. And I want to click into this JIRA. And now this is a very old JIRA that has been around for some time. And I'm going to see if I can't. There we go. Make that a little bigger. Because these are still kind of small. Okay. So this is a mock-up of a possibility, and I actually want to, that's the instance. Let me, oh, this is item. Let me look at holdings. And that, changing the way that this second pane does things, and then, so when you click, there's also a difference then in the third pane of, like, if you're clicking on holdings here in the second pane, it takes you directly to holdings in the third pane. And again, please remember, this is just a complete and total mock-up. It's not necessarily based on a real world example. As you can see, all the answer, everything is duplicated. So it makes it a little hard to tell, but are we interested in heading to something like this, or are people like, no, that's still horrible, do something completely different?
It didn't look like it was going to solve the holdings problem. Did that solve the problem of being able to put in like an HRID for holdings and know which one it was?
I would assume that's technically a different problem, but that if we were doing a redesign of the UI, that would involve some redesign of some of the searching as well. And that, but that that if we did this, I would think at some point, yes, you should be able to put in a holdings HRID and go directly to that holdings record. Lynn?
I hope everybody can hear me.
Yes.
While I like this mock-up better than what we currently have, I actually really don't like the multiple pane system. It's painful in trying to figure out what's going on. I would rather have a comprehensive results list where it would show me the holdings that I have. If the holdings is a serial, it would give me the holding statement underneath the like the location and the call number, and then item records if there are item records, and it could be truncated in some way, shape, or form where you can set like 5 to 10, the first 5 to 10 items would show up, and then there would be a like see more thing where you could click and it would just expand it out. It's just the 3 panes is so confusing because if you click in so far and then you go back to your search list, the search list kicks you all the way back to the top of your search list. Never mind if you were like in the middle of like record like 33 of 50 and you don't know which one it is. You just have to, it's a lot of scrolling and all of that. It's just, I find this is better than what we currently have, but I think if we just got rid of the whole third pane thing, that would be really helpful.
Okay. To speak to one of your points, the whole thing where the list jumps, there is a JIRA for it, and I'm not sure if it's Sunflower or there's some point that's supposed to be fixed if it's not already fixed already. And after this meeting, I will try to find it and put that information in Slack. But that's a whole different problem with it not staying where you're at, and that should be fixed soon, if it's not already.
I have a question that I realize I should know the answer to, but don't. Do we have UX designers on the development teams that would be working on this?
We have Kimmy Kester, who was invited to this meeting, but is she here at this meeting?
Yes, I'm here.
Hi. So
Hi.
so yes, Kimmy does do some work with like the mock-ups and UX and UI design, and I don't know if she would like to say something or not.
Well, I just actually posted a link to some old screens that I think they're from 2021, actually. So yes, we have worked on this in the past. This is now 2025. So those would, of course, need to be revisited. I would need to work with whatever PO wants to take this on and go forward from there. But yeah, thanks for inviting me to this meeting.
Hi, this is Natasha. I'm just wondering if we ever established like use cases for searching holdings or items, because I mean we obviously have the use case where we want to go directly to a holdings record, but when we're searching holdings, if we have ideas of what we're looking for, that might help guide what we want to actually display in the panes or in the result list.
Christine, do you happen to know if we have JIRAs, or Christine or Charlotte, if we have JIRAs for that already that have use cases and stories?
For specifically showing, this is Christine, for specifically showing only the holdings in the results list versus the items in the results list?
Well, or just for searching more like, yeah, I guess, or having more like holding specific searches or more item specific searches.
I don't think there are like specific JIRAs that have those use cases. They might be spread out across multiple ones that are just on searching, but I can't. Charlotte may be best able to speak to that. I don't know if she's there or online.
And I think it was Charlotte, this is Kimi, who I originally worked on those mocks that I just put a link to for you, Reagan, in the chat.
Yeah.
And I believe it was Charlotte who has also worked on those.
Yes, that's correct. I worked on them with her.
Jen?
But I would assume this is like, though there would have been a second pane of results, and then once you click on results, it just automatically becomes full screen with no third pane at all. Is that kind of what this was supposed to represent?
The mocks you're showing right now?
Yes.
I think if you go back in your sequence there, go back maybe to the first one, I think it shows the entrance. Yeah, so just the idea that maybe we would put a little expand full screen icon, and then you would go from there and you could open the full screen. I don't know if that's exactly what the person who was just speaking was talking about, but this is the one of the ideas we'd had at one point to relieve the pain of the third pane.
I have a use case for a situation you might need to pull up a holding record by HRID. Did you want one right now?
We can, or I said we'll be gathering some use cases and some information like after the meeting also. But yes, feel free to share if you would like to.
I can give it after the meeting.
Okay. Okay. Hold on. Now I'm trying to get back to the correct tab, but I have controls in the way. So we will do it this way. Oh.
I have a question.
Uh-huh.
So I think generally desired behavior is if you're searching for an item or holdings or maybe even instance field and there is one exact match for your search, that you might be taken directly into the item record or directly into the holdings record the way it's currently being done for item barcode and item HRID. My question, and I won't ask app to app because I already know the answer is yes, but do we need to develop that behavior field by field? Or is that something we can that can be developed in inventory of if there's an exact match on the search field, take the user directly into whether it's the holdings record, the instance record, the item record, what have you?
Christine, that would be a question I think for you.
If we had to go through field by field.
Yeah, do we have to develop that field by field, or can we just say, can we develop behavior and inventory where if there's an exact match, you're taken directly into whatever that record is?
Currently, I believe that would be field by field, because in order to do, the barcode and the HRID for item, we had to very specifically identify those.
Okay, I guess I'll open up about 300 JIRAs.
I don't know if that's 100% the case, Vivian, but I think so.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah, thank you.
Okay, and it's not that I don't want to, and we need to have a lot more talk about a lot of this, but we have about another 15 minutes because I believe this is only a 50-minute session. And so I do want to kind of get through some things just so we get started on it. And we have been talking about the detail view and the third pane and what we want to do with it. And one of the questions we have, which actually speaks to what Vivian just, or kind of speaks to what Vivian just asked, is how much do we want the search results tied to a specific search? And that is in Sierra, the user could pick which type of record opened for which search. So if I was doing a title search, I could tell it to open the bib record or item records. We didn't have holdings, so that wasn't a thing there. But then it's also like if I do a barcode search, I could go directly to items or I could go to the bib record. And we have already had cases where when we switch the barcode over in Folio to automatically open, after that change was made, we had a bunch of people like, no, we want to see the instance record after a barcode search. And so there's also this question of, do we want to be like, okay, if you do this search, this is what you get, or do we want to make it to where you choose what you get after a search?
Given that you can currently search by instance, by holdings, by item, it would seem obvious to me, perhaps, that if you're doing a barcode in an item search, you would get the item record. If you're doing a barcode search in the instance search, you're getting the instance record.
But you can't, currently you can't do a barcode search in the instance.
Right, and so that would be a change that would need to be made.
Okay, although, okay, so it's still kind of the same concept, but it would be changing that instead of having instance only searches under instance, we would list like everything there, and then what would open would depend on which tab you were in of instance holdings or items in search.
I mean, from a user standpoint, that would be a lot more streamlined. I can only guess how difficult that would be from a development standpoint.
So I basically going to say what Vivian said, but I was just going to add maybe we could have another tab, an anything search, where you can put, you know, an item barcode, a UUID, instant UID, or something like that, and it just based on what it was, it's going to bring up that record type, maybe just like a separate tab to do search everything, or maybe just instead of the tabs, maybe a drop down menu with like a list of indexes, whether you want, you know, instance, holdings, item, any of these, something like that. I don't know. That's like a lot of development work. I understand, but I think there is a good idea for to be able to search by an item barcode and pulled up an instance record.
I will say, at the risk of muddying the waters even further, that those of us on sites that are using enhanced consortia support have a whole other layer of search weirdness in that currently the facets, for instance, take all of the subtenants' fields and values into account when you do a search. I know that there is an open JIRA that's working on a way to make that not happen, so that if I'm in the college tenant, I'm only getting search results for the college holdings as opposed to college, university, museum, and everybody else.
Yeah, ECS is fun. And I don't even use ECS. But yes, that's also a good point to keep in mind, is that we do have both the ECS and non-ECS environments.
I'm guessing that some of these solutions would be much easier, with easy being a relative term, to develop in a non-ECS environment than in an ECS environment.
I would say you're probably correct. Other discussion on the detail view, either what you see or what should open. I think something, and this was very early on when the holdings and items that you see, the little bit you see when you look at the instance record there at the top for holdings and items. Charlotte did a survey, and there was only 10 universities who were connected with Folio at the time, and asked them what they wanted and in what order, and none of us were close to each other. And so I think there's also some things for working up tenant level settings that you can set the view at the tenant level. But then, yeah, so there's some work there. What else would people like to see out of the third pane if we keep it, or instead of a third pane if we don't? Felix?
I'm wondering, as you showed UX 435, the mockups in this feature, or is it a feature, or I don't know, in this ticket, in this issue.
Yeah.
When you like search for holdings record, the second one, I think it was yeah, holdings identifier, whatever that is, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. And then we get a result list with a list of instances, holdings, and their items. So does anybody remember what the concept behind that was? So would it only show in the second pane the holdings that is linked to the instance that matches that search criteria, or does it show everything? I mean, we can't tell from the data here because that's just fake data. Yeah, because I'm thinking, would it really be helpful if it shows everything? Then we are in the situation where we are right now, or would it be a pre-filtered list already in the second pane where we like imagine you search for a whole an item with a property, you only have one result. Would it then show just one item, or yeah, maybe it would open it in a full pane? I think we have to clarify that if we want to continue with this approach or investigating this approach.
That's a good point, Felix. I think it was Lynn who said maybe like having a more button for more details.
Yep, and I mean, Regan just said that when you have the current folio design where you have the list of items and you have this huge horizontal scroll bar with all the properties that we thought might be helpful for this MCL view, but it's not every item property. I mean, we see here in this mockup item barcode, status, and some kind of where it displays DVD or CD-ROM, some kind of media type. I mean, let's imagine now, oh, but we want to have property X, Y, and Z, then that list will become messy as well. And I think those three properties are not, yeah, they are not sufficient for everyone. So I think what I'm trying to say is that card layout might not fit all our needs.
Felix, it might be, and everyone, it might be interesting. I think someone alluded to this already, to have something in settings so that you can maybe configure which things do display. So if material type is important for you, then that's what you display. If maybe POL is important, then you would display that.
Would that be, in your imagination, a tenant level setting or a user level setting?
Yeah,
Ask a loaded question.
people here say whatever we can get. I don't know. It is a loaded question. And then there's, ECS, which adds additional layers to that. So probably most systems librarians would say tenant level. And users would say user level. So there you go.
Yeah, because I think that's also been from the beginning a big question is there's definitely some things that even if we could get it at tenant level, that would be great, because then things that your institution doesn't use at all, you could definitely just get rid of and not have to worry about. But yes, then it gets into the user level settings of, yeah, how customizable, because while one person in your institution may care about material type, another one might not. But is that also going too far into user level settings of exactly how customizable should we go? Felix?
Yeah, I attended a session yesterday that was hosted by John Coburn, user preferences design guidance, and he mentioned that they are now investigating how implementing more user settings could look like. Currently, we have this app selection where each user can specify in their profile the order in which the apps in folio in the menu bar should look like. And on his last slide, he said that application level preferences for persisted data display for columns or sections is also something they they would look into. So currently in some apps you can select the columns that should display, but that is just session-based selection. So the moment you close your session of Folio and you reopen it, those selection is gone. But yeah, seems like something that would help us here as well. Because when you think of inventory and the use of inventory from different staff groups, so circulation people or catalogers, I think that having a tenant level setting for how the columns should display or the properties here is not enough.
I was just going to say, this is Katie. As a systems librarian, like Jennifer said, I think it would much be easier at the tenant level, or maybe if you go down to the user level, especially if we're moving to Eureka and we're getting into roles and so forth, I think it just may get overly complicated. I mean, maybe at library level or campus level or service point, but I don't know how well that could be managed as system-wide for at the user level. I do kind of like the idea of setting it for a particular session, and then, or maybe you can save a template for those settings, but that you can select that template when you log into your session, so you don't have to reselect everything. But I just don't know, at the system level, how we would manage the various permissions for different users.
I'm going to jump in and say that I hope when we're speaking for the ECS sites, I hope when we're talking about tenant level settings, we're talking about subtenant level settings for the ECS and not one setting for, in our case, all 62 libraries.
Also a very good point. I think we are probably thinking for the ECS subtenant, and because otherwise it would be like it is now, which is like, what's the point? Because as a former Mobius member, I can guarantee you not all 62 would agree.
Oh yeah. Oh yeah.
So,
So, no more questions from the room.
okay. All right. And sorry, I have to like tab through all my tabs, and I know there's a way I could get rid of the control bar. Oh, it is 10:20. So technically, I think we're supposed to be done, although I think if we go a couple minutes over, I don't think we're going to get thrown off of Zoom. So use cases and like next steps. We need to come up with use cases and see what like are some workflows and different perspectives. We do also need to think about other groups because of course everybody uses inventory, and so they will have maybe some different ideas. And yeah, there's still a lot to do. Anybody want to give any last comments, questions?
Oh, no one is raising their hand in the Zoom. I mean, in person. Sorry,
That's okay.
God, I spend my days on Zoom.
So, okay, so I think this was a good meeting. I think we do have a few ideas for going forward. I'm glad Christine and Kimmy, and I think Ryan was also maybe attending. I'm glad you could come and listen to us talk, and I hope maybe give you guys some ideas and also maybe give you ideas of how we should be moving forward and how we could be moving forward, because I know we all have ideas. That just doesn't mean that Folio can execute them necessarily in the way we want to, but yeah, it was good. It was a start, and hopefully we will be able to continue this conversation and make some good progress.
Well, thank you, Felix and Reagan, for leading MM or continuing to lead MM. All right. Thank you, everyone. Bye.